Can you take me higher to a place where blind men see? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to 7 Minutes in Heaven, the podcast where you're inside of heaven for at least 7 minutes. Yeah, sure, I might do a longer episode here and there, but for the most part, I can guarantee you're going to be inside of me for 7 minutes. And it's a metaphor. You know, you're inside of heaven for, emotionally, spiritually, physically, if you play your cards right. Okay? And that's just what it is. That's just how the cookie crumbles around here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If it's your first time here, welcome. Welcome, friend. Take a load off. Okay? Not that kind of load. All right? Focus. I already feel like a deer on ice. On like you ever seen Bambi, where the deer is walking out on the ice and just can't get stable? This is the first episode we are experimenting with other forms of audio. Okay, we're testing out the lav mic. All right, because we're all about, just like Steve Jobs, we're all about ingenuity, progress, moving forward, changing industry. If you're just listening to the podcast, I have my hands in the shape of a diamond, which will one day tie me to Illuminati. But for now, it just means that you should take what I'm saying serious. Okay? Whenever I start really dropping knowledge and facts, boom, hit them with the diamond hands. All right? What was that lady's name from The Dropout? If you haven't seen The Dropout on Hulu, it is amazing. It's about that lady who did CRISPR. No, it wasn't CRISPR. Elizabeth Holmes. She had this idea. It's a crazy thing where she wanted to be like Steve Jobs. If you haven't seen it, it's phenomenal. Hulu has a special, like a reenactment, a drama about it. Plenty of documentaries out there, but Elizabeth Holmes was this person who basically she was a very smart person. That's what's fucked up, is if she would have been smart in in other ways, she would have been successful if she would have just didn't go too far, okay? Because she had this idea that she wanted to be able to do these, it'd be groundbreaking blood tests on this machine with just a drop of blood. But she ended up fabricating this whole story and literally was testing the blood on a different machine. They were testing it, completely erroneous results. What a sick time to use the word erroneous, just to flex on you with the dictionary. Sorry, I'm partially still dying. But it was insane. And then it comes out, she's a crazy person. But the most crazy thing is she was the living embodiment of putting your hands like this, doing the triangle, of trying to posture. I feel like that's just a thing, is the people who ain't really about that life, they need to present of being about that life. Okay, they need to just put their hands like this. They need to talk a certain way. They need to watch all the Gary Vee videos available on the internet and just sell it. All right. So what she did is she started dressing with these black V-necks. She just wanted to be Steve Jobs. And she started making her voice slowly get deeper. This is actually a really good impression of what she sounded like. We're really working on some groundbreaking things. Okay. It's the weirdest thing ever for someone just to change their voice, to be taken more serious. Have you had friends who would do that around girls? You ever been around a guy friend where all of a sudden they almost start trying to turn into their own version of Matthew McConaughey, where they're just all right, guys get tired around girls. I've literally called friends out where I'm like, hey bro, why are you tired right now? Why do you keep scratching your head so much? Guys think this is attractive. You just fucking, oh fuck. I think what it is the thing of you don't want to seem too impressed with the situation. So it's this is almost exhausting for me to be here, even though my heart is pounding out of my chest around these women or men, whatever. Come to think that I had a few friends get tired around me. You know what I'm saying? We'll let that one sink in. We'll let that one breathe a little bit. But I'm all about ingenuity. I'm all about everything. I'm all about anything, to be honest with you. I don't know if there's anything, like, you ever stop and you just think about life and you go, this is all going to be over one day. Like, I should be more open-minded. And it's like, if you stop and think about the big picture of life, you just go, it's kind of pointless to hold on to certain beliefs if they don't serve you. And like, once something's contested that you might have had it be a hard belief, but it's like, oh, that's not real. Like, allow your life to be able to change, because I feel like no matter what, if you get new information and you try to avoid it, you're going to feel the anxiety and stress of avoiding it rather than accepting it. Even if you pretend for a long time like it wasn't true. I'm talking in riddles now. That's a cool thing about the internet, is you can just say random things. You don't really have to make sense, but you leave it very vague so people interpret it the way they want to interpret it. So it comes off like, oh yeah, that's very profound. But in reality, I didn't say anything. Okay. But what I mean is, like, if you put your head in the sand and you want to pretend like something bad isn't happening, like, that bad thing is happening no matter what. And you could try to avoid it, and you can try to be like, I'm not even going to think about that. But I feel like subconsciously you are at least feeling the effects of that without a solution by not acknowledging it. I think I've done that in my life, where it's just like, you think that you can go a certain amount of time with like not having to deal with certain things. You're like, I can just avoid it. And it's like, it's never the consequences. I just I run from that. I put it in the past. That thing's not coming back to haunt me one day, you know? And then it's like, hey, one day you're just like, you walk down a dark alley, metaphorically, and then all of a sudden there's this thing flipping a coin in the corner, leaned up against the wall. And it's just like, hey, remember me? And then you're like, who are you? And it takes a long drag of its cigarette, and it goes, I'm your past. And then you go, oh, huh. And then you chuckle as if it's a homeless person, and you just keep walking by. And then it hits you with the Sub-Zero, or the Scorpion. Scorpio. Get over here. Uppercuts you. And that's life. Life just catches up, and it just goes, hey, no, there's no free rides in this. All right. And that's what I realized in life. You just got to be able to adapt. You got to be like Bruce Lee. You just got to be like water at the end of the day. And that's what is something, if you haven't known or realized, I've been not putting out as many episodes these past few weeks because your boy was dying. Okay. There was something going on with me. I was just very sick for almost 4 to 5 weeks. I want to say it was at least 4 to 5 weeks of just being sick, not having a lot of energy. Did a few COVID tests, came back negative. So I was like, okay, it's not that, but it was like flu, zero energy, fatigue, which is just another cool way to say zero energy, sinus issues, all this stuff, bad cough, all of that. And just on the brink. Thanks everybody for checking in. Not passive aggressive at all, but it like, whenever you get sick, it makes you appreciate life, and then also makes you like, be like, I gotta figure some shit out. Like, let me use this time wisely. And I thought I was out of the woods. That's the other thing, is I go immediately back to like working and full ramp it up, and then I relapse. And then it's like, oh, you tried doing that thing where you almost don't deal with the thing, and just try to keep moving forward. And I think that's what happened. I think I hit a point where it was like working too much, stressing too much, being too busy, and not relaxing. And I think that just takes a toll. I think that's something we all do. And it's almost like when we're resting, at least for me, it's like not real rest. Like, because you're either, for me, not allowing yourself to rest, where you're just like, nah, I got to do this. I can still do this and be working. But it's like, I almost don't allow myself to really unwind. Like, I'm not someone who can really just sit there and do nothing. Like, I'm like, I got to be productive. And it's probably something else I got to work out, where it's like, I have to be okay relaxing. My weird being productive is tethered to my value. in some weird way. There's probably some weird connection with that where it's like, if I'm being productive, I have value. If I'm not doing anything, I'm not valuable. And it's like, that's something I have to figure out. Okay. And then it's like a weird cycle of I will work hard and rest, but then I'll guilt myself about resting. And so I don't even enjoy the rest. But let's get off of that. This is it feels weird not having a regular microphone. So I feel like I'm doing a confessional style podcast right now. I don't even know how this audio is sounding. I don't know if we're going to make it. But when I just mentioned homeless person, I was reminded I got a bottle thrown at me last night on 6th Street by this homeless lady. Or either she threw a bottle and it broke, or she was just throwing pieces of glass at me. And it brought up a bigger question, which was, are the homeless people evolving? Are they entering the Stone Age? Some would wonder, because now they're tools. Because before, on 6th Street, it was usually they were attacking you with their imagination. And that in itself is a lot, okay, to deal with, because I wonder how many curses are out there on me. You know, you walk around 6th Street and you get yelled at all the time. It's become a normal thing. Sometimes I feel like 6th Street, and I always talk about the homeless people. I got a lot of material on it. It's fascinating that there's this sub version of life. And I don't mean it's sub in the sense of it's below, which it is. Like, obviously, homeless people, they don't have homes. Like, that's below us. And I don't mean it's below us. In the literal hierarchy, these people need help. It should be like our biggest thing that we're trying to solve. But instead, we're just literally giving them blankets. It's like, well, if you guys are going to be homeless, here's a blanket. You know, rather than like fixing the core issue. We're like, well, how did we get here? How do we avoid this? How do we actually help and rehabilitate if it's possible, or at least get them the treatment? No, we're just going to give them food so they can continue to be in this limbo of existence. Anyway, I thought I was going down a funny path, but I got very serious for a second. It is wild. They are evolving. And they're entering the Stone Age because they normally will just yell at you. And I feel like, you know, in The Walking Dead now, like that's who I am on 6th Street, where when they cover yourself in the homeless garbs, you know, the entrails of the zombies in The Walking Dead, you could walk among them. And I feel like I've earned the respect and the acknowledgement from some of the homeless people as one of their own, you know, where they see me and we make eye contact and I look at them in a way where I'm like, hey, like I'm here all the time. And they're just like, okay, like I think they're starting to recognize me, and they're like, he never gives me anything. So I'm just going to keep trying to get other brains, if you will, if you want to stick with zombie metaphors. But they're throwing glass now. Which isn't cool, because the lady threw it at me and I look back because I'm just like, holy shit, like she just threw glass or a bottle at me, and she just looks at me and she goes, wait for me. And my first reaction is, of course I'm not going to wait for you. You just threw glass at me. What am I in store for if you just threw glass at me and I wait for you? Wait for you to get a better shot? Is that what we're doing here? Because that don't make any goddamn sense. Okay. It's insane. It's insane on 6th Street. It's hilarious because people talk about 6th Street and like the mothership is there, which is Joe Rogan's club. And I heard on a podcast with Joe Rogan, he was like, isn't it amazing? You know, 6th Street, I kind of like the energy and like kind of the craziness that happens on 6th Street. Yeah, you're getting dropped off in an armored vehicle. You're hitting a back alley elevator that takes you into the abyss and you just go in safely. You're not out here fighting for your goddamn life on 6th Street, okay? Getting in my car after the mothership last night, I I'm like, there's this homeless guy standing by my door of my truck, and I'm just like, what are we doing here, bud? And I think he knew. Like, he moved away as I was coming up to it, and I didn't know if he thought I was going to get on the other side or what I was doing, but it felt like he was waiting for me to make a mistake. It felt like probably the way a zookeeper feels when they're feeding like a tiger, and the tiger's like, if you throw that bucket of food and you slip, that ass is mine. And that's what it felt like. It felt like if I took my eyes off this person and I zig when I should have zagged, I would be in someone's sleeping bag right now, probably cut up. What I'm saying is there's a problem on 6th Street. I really can never live there. I mean, hey, who knows how my life goes, and I just have a break, and then maybe I could live on 6th Street. I can end up there. It can happen to anybody. If you look at, like, when is there, I don't know if there's ever a point in your life where it's like, yeah, you could end up homeless. What's crazy is, like, there's all this stuff going on with Israel. Listen, I am not the political person in Palestine. I don't know the right things. I talk a lot of bullshit about my own experience and what works for me in my world and things I know a little bit about. I know nothing about what to do with those places. And the dumbass, like the ridiculousness of like celebrities who play pretend. Like I would have to be so educated on these subjects to really be posting anything about it, because it's such a, like, I don't know what the right answer is. I look at Ukraine and I just look at objective stuff of like how much money we've spent on Ukraine, and you hear about, like, you know, it being a proxy war and all this stuff. And you look at all the issues we have in America. It's like, was this the right move with how much money? I think if we're just sending money, all the stuff overseas, and we have so many problems here, I don't know. There's something weird going on where I'm like, I don't know if that's the right thing to do. I don't believe it is. I truly don't. But when it comes to like Israel and Palestine, and you start seeing, like, I think the loss of any innocent lives, I think the loss of life in general is not a great thing, you know? And if you start hearing about kids and women and just the stuff that's happening, and it's like, it's terrible. It's all terrible. I always think like the answer is, and then it's not, and it's a stupid thing to say, because it's like, I always wish there was like a peaceful way to resolve things. I feel like you should always, you should do everything you can to have a peaceful resolution with anything, no matter what it is, whether it's your relationship, whether it's like a beef with someone else, no matter what it is like my life, like the point I'm at, I'm just like, I don't want the problem. I don't want problems, you know? And that's like a huge thing with my relationship, which is like that I love and is amazing, is like I've taken on the mindset. Like, I feel like when I was younger, I was down for the beef. I was down for the fighting. I liked the friction. It was fun, the excitement of it. I'm Puerto Rican. It's in my blood to just want to get fiery and passionate. And that's how you really show your corazón, okay, is you get fiery. And now, if I was really going to give advice to someone in their 20s or somebody dating at all, is like really always look at everything as you guys versus the problem, rather than like when you're attacking things. It's never like, oh, I'm trying to prove you wrong. You did this, you did that. You know, it's like, what's the solution for us as a team to deal with this? And I'm sure I learned that from some book. I'm sure I learned that from like Jocko Willink or somebody a lot smarter than me. Jocko's book is amazing. If you haven't read it, Extreme Ownership. It's one of the most freeing things I've ever experienced in my life. Was reading Jocko's book on extreme ownership, where no matter what the situation you're in, you take responsibility for your actions and the results that you get. no matter what it is. And once you accept responsibility for something, it frees you, because now you're solution based. You don't need anybody else to fix it if you just accept responsibility, no matter what it is. It could be anything in your life. Someone mistreated you. Okay, that was my fault. Okay, well, how am I going to avoid that shit from happening again? Boom, you're free. But this whole thing, I'm like not even really making a point with the Israel and Palestine thing, but I always just think it's so silly with celebrities when they start like saying what should be done and like what the right thing to do is. I'm just like, you got to know your wheelhouse, and yours is like playing pretend. When you start seeing actors and shit like that, just saying these like, I don't know, you see it all the time. And I do feel like things are getting better. Like people are waking up to not be like impressed by celebrity and like by people who just say the dumbest shit, and you're just like, what are you doing? Like, do you remember during the pandemic? The pandemic was literally, the good old pandy was such a wild existence for a little while. Like, it was such a weird thing when you had Aaron Paul, you had all these people being like, I take responsibility. And you have Aaron Paul being like, for every role I got that a black actor didn't get. It's like, yeah, I don't know if they were looking, like, who were they looking for Breaking Bad? You know? Aaron Paul, great actor. All right. Love him, everything he's been in. But I'm also just like, what are you doing? I think it's like misplaced energy of being like, I feel like I need to do something. I don't know what to do. And I think it's like dumb publicists being like, this is a good idea. It's a weird world we live in. But this whole Israel, Palestine thing, it's like, could things really get, I don't know. I always, and maybe it's like something with not being, I don't want to give anybody else anxiety. It's like this thing of not being financially, like I'm not financially free. In the sense of, if shit hit the fan and the grid fell, it's going to be chaos for me in my life. In the sense of like, oh, okay, well, shit, well, we're kind of vulnerable. I think for the most part, America is vulnerable in the sense of that, of where our food comes from. But it's like, and this is what I think I long for this. And it's probably just some dumb lizard brain stuff left over from just like genetics, where I long for self-sufficiency. I long for like being out somewhere with a river running through it, taking care of a nice little trout population that I regulate, you know, maybe some goats, maybe a cow or two, raising the little livestock, and just having some land-grown veggies, you know, and what I need to survive. If I was in a completely self-sustained situation, it wouldn't really matter as much what's happening in the world. And maybe that's what happens, like, you know, kind of going back to what I was talking about in the beginning of not accepting things that aren't like you're vulnerable to, and then not accepting that things are a problem. But it's like, I feel like that's what happens in like America, just the way our life is set up, where it's like we get all this bad food from the store, we get all this I feel like bad medicines. Like I feel like Western medicine is fucked up. We have all these problems. We have all these dopamine issues because of phones and just like the way entertainment is set up, and all these like modern things that we've become so reliant on, when it's like there's probably a level of anxiety and stress that we're getting as humans because of the lack of self-sufficiency. I always think the dopest thing that I've ever learned was being self-sufficient in some areas of my life. When I learned how to like change a tire, all of a sudden the fear of being stranded with a flat tire went away. when I learned how to, cook food, and learned how to, make dinners and grill and all this stuff. The fear of being hungry and like always needing something else went away. When I can go on and on, but it's like when I figured out ways to make money without needing a corporation and having a job that I got to go work 40 hours a week in. When I learned how to do that, that fear of having to be stuck doing something I don't love went away. And even to relate it to stand-up, I used to have a fear in the beginning of not knowing if jokes were funny. If jokes weren't funny, I would panic and it would be bad because I wouldn't know how to get out of the hole of telling bad jokes. I still tell bad jokes a lot. I do, because all new jokes don't work. There's a lot of jokes that are just like, they're just not going to be funny. They're not funny yet. You got to really work them out. But I wouldn't know how to get out of that hole. I wouldn't know how to do crowd work. I wouldn't know how to get it back to like a level playing field, where I can, tell a different joke. But as I developed a skill to be able to handle bad jokes, that fear went away. Didn't need another example, I realized, with that. But yeah, real serious episode. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. But this is what I want to talk about. This is just where it went. Because I feel like there is a lot of anxiety and stress in everyone. Like it's not a hidden thing that there's more anxiety and stress in our culture than there's like ever been before. And there could be a lot of reasons, whether we're eating bad food that's causing issues with your gut, that's raising anxiety on a systemic level because it's just fucked up, or you're wasting all your dopamine in your body just doom scrolling, or you're not really getting fulfilled from not doing things that require work and like doing things. Like I feel like that's also the catch-22 of having so many luxuries in life, where it's almost like you have to keep it's you that has to be accountable for like creating your struggle and like evolving, because it's kind of easy to just survive. You could just work a regular job and have an apartment, you split the rent, you make enough money to survive, you make enough money to order the foods you like and have Netflix. And that's all you need to survive. But it's like you're not really thriving and you're not really being challenged. And I feel like the human monkey that we are needs like that challenge and that thing to like, I don't know, you need resistance. I think that's why you look at previous generations of how studly they were, is because life was just hard to survive. I was talking to my grandma and just hearing like her like story of her parents and how her mom dropped out after 8th grade and went to work at in 8th grade, went and worked a job at 8th grade, and how her dad, he dropped out at 8th grade too. And then he went and got a job and just started working and then like moved out. We're talking about, this was 140, no, not even that, like 120 years ago. And the level of education they had from their school at that time in 8th grade, I feel like 8th graders now, I don't know really any, so I'm just saying this, but I feel like they're infatized, like I feel even my parents' generation, they were like kind of, what was it called? Latchkey kids, where like you would leave in the morning and you would just be out like an alley cat, like an outdoor cat, just living your life and everything. And then you would come back when the lights turned on, like when the street lamps came on, you had to get home. Like my dad's childhood was insane growing up in Brooklyn. Like just the shit they would do, they were out on the prowl. And I feel like through that, you gain all this experience and knowledge, and that's where you like become a self-sufficient person. But I feel like, what's that book, The Great Coddling of the American Mind or something like that? But it's like we're not giving kids an opportunity to like grow up and have hardships. And it's like life has become so insulated and you could do it all from your phone and everything, to where it's like now kids are just so scared. And I couldn't imagine like an 8th grader from now having to go up. Like if you looked at them, I would actually love to see side by side who is like the kind of functioning human each of them were, you know, based on like just cognitive ability, emotional response, just looking at them side by side. Because you might be like, dude, the little kids now, they just know how to work an iPad and do all this. Like, yeah, but what can't they do? Because I feel like there's a trade-off to that always, where it's just like the yin and the yang. There's a movie I want to watch. It's called Captain Fantastic. It's with Vigor or whatever. He played Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, but he raised like his kids off the grid. So they had all these skills of survival and being self-sufficient. They were running in the mountains, doing planks, learn how to skin animals and everything. You want that, but you need them to be able to, like, you need the balance. You need the hybrid, you know, you need a little bit of both. And I feel like that's the thing, is like, I feel like natural reaction is to like just overprotect and to make it as easy as possible, their existence, make them happy, experience. But it's like, I want them to be, when they reach a certain age, self-sufficient, where it's like, yeah, you can just deal with the problems. It's not like you're going to be good because we've made things easier so you can get to a level where you're not going to have to deal with a lot of these problems. But it's like, no, I want you to be at a certain point where you can handle any problems because of the things you've experienced growing up. I don't know. So I'm thinking about being an absent father. I feel like that's the number one thing you can do. If you really want your kid to succeed, you just leave, you know? You name them Sue and you just leave. I feel like that's the best thing you could do as a father, and just watch from a distance. I don't know. I'm thinking about starting to drink dairy again, just so I can go out for a gallon of milk. I might even start smoking cigarettes again, just to have that moment where I can go out for a pack of smokes on that kid and just be like, hey, good luck. I think I'm gonna have to beat my wife. Yeah, you got to be there a little bit in the beginning to like let them see some abuse. So like they always have like that mental image to kind of get them pumped up throughout life. Something they can pull on later in life, I think, is the best thing. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I love you guys. Thank you for listening. We're not going to miss another week of doing the podcast. Hopefully this audio isn't terrible, and we can move forward like this, because this is a test to see what it's like going forward with doing the podcast this way. Because if this works out, we're going to start being able to do the podcast in different environments, different places, and kind of like switch it up a little bit. Okay. But yeah, everybody listen to the podcast. Thank you so much. I love you guys. And a lot of shows coming up. If you're in Austin, October 27th, I'll be producing a show at Elevated Wellness. A cool CBD shop where free edible with your purchase. And then November 3rd, I will be co-headlining a show at Wake the Dead in San Marcos. Cool little venue, very intimate, where I think I'm going to be doing a half hour. So if you want to see an extended set, kind of see the whole picture, please come out. And I think 11/10, I'm going to be hosting a Evan and Friends show at Roscoe's Comedy Club at Roscoe's Comedy Club, where I'm going to put some people on. And then there'll be other shows sprinkled in. So just stay, Saturday, Midnight Mass in Vulcan Gas Comedy. Vulcan Gas Club. What is it? Vulcan Gas Company. Saturday night with that's Mason Smith's show. Friday night, I'll be at Wake the Dead doing a show. Next week, I have a show in Lockhart on Wednesday, the 25th. And yeah, I love you guys. I have other shows, but we'll hit those up later. But listen, thank you guys. That was a weird outro. I should have been more prepared, and I will be. But I love you. Bye.